Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to do the weather for the next 8 to 10 days in today's video. So this will take us up to around the 25th of September, so going into the latter stages of the month. We're going to have a look at the charts for the rest of this week and into next week. I think we're going to get a drier slot over the weekend. Could be a bit chilly though, especially at night, and then probably reverting to a more unsettled pattern next week. However, there is a bit of a discrepancy between the GFS and the ECMWF on next week's video, so I'll show you the charts in a second. But before I get on with that, just very quickly to mention the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages at gazos.com. You can browse your widgets and click through the links. You'll be helping to pay for the website. Thanks very much for doing that. I thought we'd start off with the Central England temperature because we're halfway through the month now, of course. So this is the latest from Hadley for September. We currently provisionally stand at 13.4 degrees, which is an anomaly of around 1 degree cooler than average. Actually, I think it's significantly cooler than even that, because this isn't really taking into account the very cool nights that we had early on in the month. I think they sort of undercooked the coolness. So when we get to the end of the month, we can expect quite a big downgrade this month, I think, of the temperature. So actually, we're probably still under 13 degrees. We're probably somewhere around 12.7, 12.8 as our temperature so far in the central England region. So I think we're going to get a cooler than average September. It's just be a question of how cool it ends up. It's not beyond the realms of impossibility that we could finish up sub 13, somewhere around 12.8, 12.9. If we do that, it'll be the coolest September since 1994 or 1993, so a very long time ago since we had such a cool September. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Obviously, it does play quite nicely to the September month-head forecast that we issued at the start of the month, which was for a cooler than average month. And also Tony Moran settled, which has come off. So I'm quite pleased actually with how the September month-head forecast is going. It doesn't happen all that often that I get it right in terms of this longer range stuff, but this one's looking like a fairly good one. Well, let's have a look at the weather for tomorrow. Going to be a proper wet and windy day. We've got the remains of Tropical Storm Henri bearing down on us, as I'm sure you've been hearing about and reading about on the telly and in the papers. This is it, the low pressure down here around the Bay of Biscay at midnight. That's going to be pushing northwards through the course of Wednesday, bringing heavy rain into the south, and then that carries on pushing north. So it's really going to be affecting England and Wales. I think Scotland and Northern Ireland will probably miss most of this. It's down across England and Wales that we get the best of it. And it's sort of a trend of this month, actually, that the south is probably more unsettled than the north. So perhaps evening out a little bit from the summer, where the north did very, very badly, and the south had a fairly reasonable, not a great summer by any means, but a fairly reasonable summer down in the south. It could be sort of evening itself out a little bit, the weather, at the moment, with the north getting the best of it. Anyway, the remains of Tropical Storm Henri comes across England and Wales through the course of tomorrow, and then pushes off into the North Sea as we go into Thursday. That's the plan at the moment, anyway. So we've got this heavy rain down across France at midnight, and then that's going to push north through the course of Wednesday morning. This is midday Wednesday, with rain coming across much of England and Wales. The heaviest stuff still down across northern France and the Channel at that point, but the rain does get heavier through the course of Wednesday afternoon. Some quite torrential bursts possible there, coming in across England and Wales in particular. Notice Scotland, Northern Ireland, far north of northern England. No, you're not getting too much there. That rain does potentially turn torrential, as I say, late Wednesday into Thursday, pushing particularly through the Midlands and northern England. So there it is across the northeastern parts of England at midnight on Thursday. And it's going to be pretty cool, actually, with the temperatures with that heavy rain as well. So we can just have a very quick look at those temperatures for tomorrow afternoon. And we're looking at temperatures sort of 16, 17 if the sun comes out. But under the persistent rain, we've seen temperatures just down into the low teens at best. So pretty cool, pretty miserable, wet and windy day. I haven't really mentioned the winds, but there were some quite strong winds with this system, particularly down in southern and western coastal regions, where those winds could reach gale force. Right, let's have a look at the next 8 to 10 days. So we've got the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts here from the PSU site. Flip them around, of course, as you know we're doing now. So what we've got here is the ECMWF on the top and the GFS is on the bottom. And red is extrapolating high pressure, blue is extrapolating low pressure. Now, this is showing up quite nicely, that difference between the ECM and the GFS. This is for 8 to 10 days on. It takes up to around 24th, 25th of September. We've got above average heights, which is high pressure, building in from the north and the northeast into the UK here. So a lot of dry weather under this ridge, pushing down across the country. It won't be particularly hot because the ridge is coming more from a northerly direction. So yeah, probably quite cool actually, but it is mostly settled. The GFS is different though. We've got this trough of low pressure here around the south of the country through central parts of Europe, with the ridge more to the east and the northeast, and also centred out in the Atlantic. So what's going on there is that the flow is still coming through the country rather like that. So it's a subtle difference, but it is quite a big difference because the GFS is far more unsettled here than the ECMWF, which is bringing a lot of settled weather in through the course of next week. We'll have a look at the charts in a moment. So GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles look like this. Generally a cool period coming up. The red line is the 30-year temperature average, and well, the best we're going to do is sort of bob around the average at times, hinting at going a bit cooler than average, particularly perhaps here, somewhere around the 22nd, maybe through to the 27th of September. In that period there's quite a few members going significantly cool, so maybe bringing some sort of northerly into the country perhaps around that period. That could give us sort of night frost, particularly up in the north. Also fairly unsettled. These are the precipitation spikes associated with Tropical Storm Henri, or the remains of it, that's coming up and will be affecting us through the rest of this week. Then a drier slot as we go through into the weekend, this period just here. Then the rainfall spikes come back, perhaps not quite as intensely, but they do come back a bit as we go through into next week. So it does imply, but it's never truly settling down except for a day or two over the weekend. But those temperatures are fairly modest, and if they do come off, they will be locking us into a cooler than average month, because we're already significantly cooler than average. There's nothing there suggesting that we're going to significantly lift the temperatures up through the coming week to 10 days. This is the temperature anomaly from the 15th through to 23rd of September, and generally coming out a bit cooler than average. Notice how warm it is in the east of Europe. That's where the warmth is this month. It's in the east and the southeast Europe. I think most temperatures will be moderating a little bit at the end of the week and into the weekend, but even so, significantly warmer than average in the east of Europe, cooler than average out in the west. Rainfall anomalies show driest conditions for Scotland and Northern Ireland, wettest conditions for England and Wales for the week 15th to the 23rd of September. As I say, things have shifted around a little bit from the summer when it was the north and the west getting the wettest weather and the south and east was driest. These things always tend to ease themselves out in the end, even out. Yeah, it's the south that's getting it, and if you're up in the north, it's making up a little bit for the very wet and miserable summer that you endured. So this is the GFS chart for Saturday. We're losing at that point the trough of low pressure. That's bringing us all of the unsettled conditions this week. That finally goes as we get into Saturday, and we get this little bit of a ridge building up from the south. That ridge stays with us as we move through into Sunday, so probably quite a lot of settled weather coming up over the weekend. It will be cool, particularly at night. You'll notice some very chilly nights indeed, probably with mist and fog patches as well. But in the sunshine by day, it should be reasonably pleasant. Now, the start of next week sees pressure weakening again, as we saw on the height anomalies for GFS wants to bring unsettled weather back in next week. So this is Monday the 21st, and the low pressure is starting to move back in off the Atlantic. By the time you go through to Tuesday the 22nd, we're back into an unsettled flow. It's cool as well because the jet stream is going northwest to southeast, so cool and unsettled conditions return early next week. through to Wednesday the 23rd, stays unsettled with low pressure around the country, and then on into the 24th and the 25th. It all gets a bit messy, but we've probably got some sort of ridge out to the west, with troughiness remaining to the east, so probably showers continue in the east, elsewhere it turns drier. Just go a little bit beyond that. Don't very often do this, but we'll go out to 300 hours, which is Sunday the 27th of September. There's a little bit of a hint there of retrogression, which is where we take high pressure, or any pressure really, but in this case it's high pressure, we take it from east to west, which is as opposed to the normal flow, which is west to east. So when you get retrogression, you're usually taking the high pressure out into the Atlantic, and sometimes taking it up to Greenland, and that is sort of what this is hinting. Taking that high pressure up to Greenland and just bringing down, or signs that we bring down, quite a cold northerly wind there. That will be something to watch out for as we go through the autumn into the winter. If you get retrogression, taking that high pressure towards Greenland, watch out. It's usually a sign that you're in for some significantly cold weather. Now, this isn't significantly cold because it's still September, but it is pretty chilly air coming down from the north at that point. We did see that on the GFS ensemble, so it's just a hint. Sometime through the final week of the month, that we could pull in some sort of polar northerly wind. The ECWF is much more settled for next week, so that's the good news if you want settled early autumn conditions. We get rid of that trough again on Saturday. Build the ridge through the country nicely on Sunday. There'll be some chilly nights with that, but it's mostly settled by day. I mean, unlike the GFS, which brings the Atlantic back in, the ECWF actually tends to keep the ridge very close to us. Now, I think it probably does turn more unsettled down in the south and southwest by Tuesday the 22nd of September, but the ridge is still fairly strong up to the northeast, still quite well in control. We keep that ridge going through the course of the week, actually. This takes us up to day 10, which is Friday the 25th of September, and again the ridge is more or less in control. It's probably not entirely dry, it's probably not as settled as it appears on the surface. I think we will be bringing some troughs through at the very least, which will be bringing some showers, but it isn't as unsettled as the GFS this morning. The GEM, the Canadian, is going more with the GFS though, so again we build that ridge over the weekend. We will have a couple of settled days over the weekend with cold nights but reasonably warm feeling days. But as we go through into the start of next week, the GEM wants to bring the Atlantic back in, so it's siding with the GFS actually, but it turns more unsettled next week, and we just keep low pressure around the country really through the course of the week, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. So I'm not entirely certain where we're going with next week's weather, but I think the ECM is probably overdoing that ridge a little bit, and I tend to go with the idea that we have a couple of settled days over the weekend, maybe lasting into Monday, and then probably turning it more unsettled as we go through next week. There are hints within the modelling that we could get some sort of retrogression through the final week of the month. This is probably a little bit beyond the day 10 period, but sometime during the final part of the month we may get a bit of retrogression. We may take the high pressure towards Greenland. If we do, we could get our first proper northerly shot of the autumn. It's very early for that, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. It could bring some wintry showers to the far north of Scotland. So autumn's cracking on. We're getting on with it early this year. The last few years we've had delayed autumns with summer clinging on desperately. Not this year. It's a different pattern this year. Autumn definitely with us. That's it for now then. It's a 5-day forecast for us. Come over that. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.